What's going on, guys? Rounded Tic Tac here, and I just wanted to say thank you for the support on the Barbarian Feels Bad video. Again, just to reiterate, love the game, in love with the game, absolutely am having a blast. Barbarian feels weak early, and 85% of the people seem to agree with me. If you don't and you didn't have that issue, that's fantastic too. I know there's some good builds rolling around. My entire point is that you shouldn't need full uniques on a character to make them feel good while leveling. That was my point of the video, and I think that point is still valid and stands. Number two, I've been playing Rogue a lot, trying to get them up to 25, and there is literally about 35 minutes left on the server until it ends. So I wanted to put this build together. I am not saying it is the best, but it is a shit ton of fun, and I'm really enjoying playing it. It is a hybrid poison ice build, and the reason we went this route is because just some of the items that we had dropped, if you guys, have had some uniques drop for you, know that kind of determines what kind of build you're going to go for. If you get a really cool item that gives a certain ability you have a really cool effect, you may respec and, grab that effect, that ability that you weren't using previously. So with that out of the way, granted, like I said, there's 35 minutes left on the server, so I am trying to record this and get this out quickly for something you can try when the next week rolls around if you plan on rolling a rogue. I am really enjoying this build. It absolutely decimates rooms of enemies. There's a ton of crowd control, a ton of safety, and the single target damage on bosses is wild if you get a little lucky, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's break down the 2 or 3 items that are important to this build that you should be on the lookout for if you want to try this next weekend. Let's get into it. Number 1, we have a sword. Now, the sword or the weapons don't really matter. It's all about the imprints, as you guys know, the aspects, the little stars on the items. And this one is important, and we'll talk about more. We'll talk about why a little bit more. Again, I'm trying to do this quickly, so sorry if there's some stumbles. Skills deal up to 32% increased damage based on your available primary resource. In this case, it's energy, receiving the maximum benefit while you have a full primary resource. So in this case, we are using energy. I have 115 of it. The higher I can keep that up to the 115 cap, the more damage, up to 32%, that I will be getting on every ability dot everything that I have should get that 32% increase minus any bugs or any kind of spaghetti code. Number 2 is this ring. Killing a vulnerable enemy grants you 70% increased energy regeneration for 4 seconds. Energy regeneration is important to our build, and I will explain why once we get to the skill tree. Number 3 is critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed by 54%. Our main skill down here, our invigorating strike, we want to be able to use that as fast as possible because we're going to be using the luck off of the attempted strikes to proc poison, and we'll get to that in just in a little bit. The reason why I went with a frost poison build is because of the next 2 items. Chilled enemies hit by your grenade skills, in this case we're using caltrops, have a chance to equal to double your critical strike chance to be instantly frozen for 2 seconds. You deal 20%, give or take, increased critical strike damage to frozen enemies. We freeze enemies constantly with this build. And then our last thing here, which again led me into caltrops and led me into a freeze build, is caltrops also throw a cluster of exploding stun grenades that deal 87 total physical damage and stun enemies for 0.5 seconds. With these gloves, with these boots, we are doing 20% more damage, stunning and freezing enemies constantly, and they're caught in basically poison pools 24/7. They get absolutely melted by really anything that we do. The build has a ton of survivability, a ton of mobility, and it really does shred bosses if you get a little lucky, like I said. So let's talk about that real quick. Let's go into the skill tree, and I'll show you exactly what we picked and why we picked it. Number 1, we are using Invigorating Strike. All this is a melee attack that helps us keep our energy regeneration high. That is a theme you will see in this build, and it's all for our ult. Next, we have Enhanced Invigorating Strike, which is damaging a crowd control or injured enemy, gives us more energy regeneration. Since everything's going to be frozen and or knocked down or stunned with this build, this is constantly up, and you will never really have an issue with your energy regen. Then we have Primary Invigorating Strike, and this is important for later on in the build. This is additionally grants 8% lucky hit chance. Hitting a crowd control enemy gives it a 16% chance for a lucky hit. If you guys didn't know, a lucky hit is just a different kind of crit. Imagine it's crit plus, I guess you could say. It just has certain effects that attach to it. You have certain skills that can proc set effects or proc on set effects. That is what a lucky hit is. Then we come down here and you can choose either Flurry if you would like to, but I really enjoy Twisting Blades. I think this is one of the best abilities I've played with in a long time in any ARPG. It feels great. It feels chunky. I really love this ability. It feels fantastic. That gives us Twisting Blades, deal 30% increased damage when returning. Fun fact, the returning blade can proc your poison. When you imbue your blades with poison, that's a lot of alliteration. It can proc it on the way back and the way forward. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, we have Advanced Twisting Blades here. This gives us cooldown reduction on any enemy the blades pass through once you stab them and then they return to you. Any enemy that passes through gives you cooldown reduction. As you can see, energy regeneration, cooldown reduction are all themes with this build. Then, because of our unique item, we went for Caltrops. This thing is insane. 53% slow even at level 2. Then on top of that, they take 3% increased damage in the Caltrops, and then Caltrops deal cold damage and chills enemies 20% per second. I'm assuming at 100% they become frozen, which is not hard with the rest of our build to keep them in the Caltrops area. Number 3, number 4, 5, wherever we are, is Poison Trap. I absolutely love this fucking ability. It is so cool looking. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. It does exactly what I want it to do every single time. And it deals a butt ton of damage. Up to 1,751 poison damage to enemies that are in the area. We take the second node, and now Poison Trap knocks down enemies for 1.5. So they're guaranteed 20% of the damage. Guaranteed. Since we're using Caltrops, they get frozen inside of this Poison Trap and usually take the entire 2,000 damage over a second, if not more, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then we have Subverting Poison Trap, which you deal 10% increased poison damage to enemies standing inside your Poison Trap. Since they're frozen and stuck in the Poison Trap or knocked down, they are constantly in there. We are constantly getting that damage buff. Then lastly, we have Imbued Poison Weapons. This makes your next 2 skills, whether in this case it's Twisting Blades, but if you are using a different kind of, if you're not using Caltrops, you don't have the ice benefit that I do, or the grenade benefit, then you could switch this up and use dash or something like that, because that also affects your cooldowns. It basically makes you poison the enemies. From here on out, we have Poison Imbuement, which gives us an extra second of poison, and then this is what goes all the way back to our Invigorating Strike with the 16% lucky hit chance. Lucky hit poison imbued skills have up to a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poison damage over time. Because I was rushing and the servers were closing, I didn't realize that Poison Trap doesn't get affected by that last node of the lucky hit. So I just wanted to mention that because that's what I said during this portion. This is post Tic Tac. Not to mention what goes off of this, and if it doesn't go off of Poison Trap and just works on this, that is 327% extra damage over 6 seconds, which is wild. But hold on, it gets even better. Coming down here on our ultimate, we are taking Shadow Clone. Shadow Clone does 80% of our damage and copies every single skill that we do. So in a fight, we pop Shadow Clone, we imbue our weapons with poison, we drop a Poison Trap, which just became 2. We hit him a few times with Invigorating Strike to try our best to get the Lucky Strike bonus, and then we hit them with Twisting Blades and then jump away with Caltrops. All of that is happening, and it gets doubled by your Shadow Clone, and then your Shadow Clone also does 20% extra damage. The amount of modifiers that are in this build are freaking wild. One more thing that I forgot to mention is we are using Inner Sight here. Inner Sight is attacking marked enemies fill up on your Inner Sight gauge. When that happens, you get unlimited energy for 4 seconds. Since we're going to have a Shadow Clone, we want to be able to spam our Twisting Blade as much as possible. So if you get to a boss fight, try to get your passive up as high as you can without actually proccing it, and end up proccing it on the boss to be able to spam your abilities. This is the passive. This is what it looks like up here, and it sits down here.
Need more time.
So with all of the things coming together, once the game comes out, you're definitely going to want to look for anything with lucky hit chance, critical strike chance, or critical hit damage, or anything along those lines. Anything that increases damage over time or poison is something you're definitely going to want to look for as well. And anything that kind of buffs your just AoE size, if that's a thing. Cooldown is not an issue with this build because we have so many skills resetting our cooldowns. As you guys saw in the footage, I'm constantly using caltrops, constantly using my heavy attack, constantly dropping the poison bomb. It's ridiculous. This build is so much fun. It has so much crowd control. I feel like a tank half the time because everything's frozen or poisoned or both. Crowd control, everything about it is fantastic. I highly recommend you guys try this build out. It's a ton of fun to play. That is the entire build. It's a great beginner build. I had no problems clearing any bit of content with it. I really, really, really enjoyed this build. Please check it out. Let me know if you guys like it down in the comments below. I will see you guys next weekend for some Druid and Necromancer gameplay. Subscribe if you are new. It really does help out the channel. And if you guys want to see me stream Diablo 4 or Destiny 2, those are the two games I'm currently playing, come over to twitch.tv/roundedtictac. We could talk all things that games starting with a D. Have a great one, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Tic Tac out.